Engineers of Reddit, what's something that a client has insisted on having that is literally impossible? Worked once with a customer who wanted a shipping case with both cooling fans, item inside needed airflow, and waterproof. It took 3 days of phone calls to explain. As the boss of their company kept sending me links to waterproof fans, not realizing that meant the fans themselves were waterproof. Not that there was some magical way to get airflow but not waterflow. Early in my career, I was on a contract to provide lighting for the inside of a mining tunnel. The customer wanted low heat, semi-permanent floodlights, but didn't want to run a generator or replace batteries. He wanted them to be solar-powered. When I explained that this wasn't possible because there was no sunlight available to charge them, he insisted that if we just point the lights at each other, they'll all be charged and run indefinitely. 17 years in electrical engineering has taught me that a lot of people believe in perpetual motion. A client insisted we should be able to remove 100% of a trace gas from their main product gas. 100% as in every last molecule. I had to explain that's not how separation processes work. Not an engineer. But I work closely with them and our maintenance team. Industrial health and safety. Management dreamed up this new assembly room. It would be completely automated, and would be the first of its kind in our field. Every step of the process done on 4 connected assembly lines, with only a few people working control panels. Engineers tried to tell them it was impossible. The tech just isn't there yet. And this company has had horrible luck every time it's tried automation in the past. We still have a $4 million robotic booth that hasn't been used for several years because it would basically itself within 5 minutes of running every single time they tried to run it. Engineers finally came up with the absolute closest they could get with the best tech available. It would be 80% automated assuming everything worked flawlessly. But there would be almost no room between the 4 adjacent assembly lines. Meaning maintenance would not physically be able to get in to work on things or even do PMs. Even the manufacturer of the equipment, who stood to make around $50 million on this deal, advised the company against it because our company would end up to them about basic repairs when our own trained people weren't able to fix tiny problems. Eventually, walls were knocked down, and the space between the lines that got installed is around 4.5 feet. Not comfortable, but doable. Everything got installed, which included paying for a team of Italian engineers to live here for 6 months to oversee the whole thing. According to the Italian guys, their company was giving them the rest of the year off, paid, in exchange for taking this project on. Well, it all got installed, and looks pretty impressive. It's the biggest and most comprehensive system of its type on the planet. Yet, it turns out, the company's luck with automation hasn't gotten any better. So far, we've shut down 4 other lines to staff this one. Which I guess is proportional. Except that these workers now have no purpose other than sit around, watch the machines, and radio maintenance when something goes wrong. Which is every few minutes. Based on printed out emails I've seen. The top corporate guys are beyond furious about this. And since the line opened last August, they still have not produced a single sellable product. Too many quality issues. Meanwhile, the lines at our other plants, still using late 80s, early 90s tech, are doing just fine. It has been such a giant clusterfuck. Even this massive post doesn't do it justice. Worked in med device engineering for a little while. Brought a survey about our prototype to a conference where the largest response was, "Make it floppier but more stiff." What the actual? Your doctors? Another fun case was someone who played a game service had a problem. You see, our game was making his CRT monitor freak out. Customer support couldn't figure it out. And for some reason the call was sent to ME. As it turns out, his monitor was failing. And really he only ever had it on long enough to heat up and start showing symptoms while playing our game. He still thought I could fix it with an update. End user spec said paint the pulsation vessels orange. Contractor spec said paint the pulsation vessels blue. Contractor said, you must comply. We said, sure, no problem. With which spec? Quote. You must comply. Them. Please tie down the part so it doesn't float away. Me. It won't float away. There's no need. Them. Yeah. But you're pumping out the gravity. So it'll float away. Me. This is a vacuum chamber. Them. Exactly. For those that don't know, a vacuum chamber pumps out the air. But the folks that asked me to do this, they should know. They're the ones launching stuff into space. Not an engineer, but an automotive technician. Feel free to delete if non-applicable. I pride myself of top-notch brake work. Perfectly true rotors. Excellent finish. Clean brake fluid. Noiseless operation. I finished the job. Seated the pads. Gave the car back to the customer. He came back the next day complaining that his brakes stopped too well and demanded that I fix them. Look buddy. You can either adapt to how your vehicle is supposed to operate or crash on the freeway next time you need to do an emergency stop. I'm sorry for going a little bit off topic. But I felt the need to post it here. I'm your standard web dev programmer type. I had a customer who asked me to make him his very own TLD. Like .com, .org, .net, .ca, etc. He wanted Mitch, his name is Mitch. When I told him that wasn't reasonably feasible for me to just give him his own TLD, he dropped me as a vendor because I didn't have enough of a can-do attitude. Edit. To the multitude of people saying, you can. It's prohibitively expensive. Subject to approval. And this happened somewhere around 2005 when it wasn't reasonably possible. I had a woman complain at me that she wanted me to make sure the asphalt I laid down in her neighborhood on her street was not black but was the same shade of gray that already existed. She didn't want the non-matching asphalt. She wanted the stuff that matched what was already there. Not a client. But when marketing tries to set all the goals for engineering without consulting any engineer about feasibility. Marketing wants UL certification. I tell them we need 3 units to test. Each unit cost $20K. Marketing loses there and I kid you not says, we don't need to waste $60K on those tests. Just because those standard engineers agree that those should be the standards doesn't make them right. They only need 1 unit and no destructive testing needs to be done. We can do that later. I hate the marketing department. Engineer. Spent 2 years designing a fancy new major bridge client. Yo, can we please move it over here? Engineer. $_. I'm not an engineer. But work in data science. We once had a client who gave us a bunch of their sales data and asked us to make a program that based on their data calculates the exact price at which their product should be priced to maximize revenue. We could attempt to create a pricing estimate model. But there's no guarantees it will be accurate to the point you want due to numerous factors. Data science is great and can help with a lot of things. But it can't do everything. A database that could be used nationwide. Refreshes all terminals in real time. With 0 delay. Anywhere in the world that the records are accessed. In other words, if someone edited a record, it was not acceptable for it to be ever locked. So as many people can edit it at the same time. In real time. And/or any other instances can't be resolved after the fact. Or to happen even some milliseconds later. Right now. This instant. It has to be instant. He wouldn't even listen to how computers do things step by step. And temporarily locking a record for edit is perfectly conventional solution that would almost never inconvenience anyone. Anyways. Just the portion of instant makes it a system that violates causality itself. Hold your hands about a foot apart. That's how far light travels in a nanosecond, 1/1000th of a second. Through a vacuum. So to travel a mere 1,000 feet takes a microsecond. To travel 1,000 miles. Over 5 milliseconds. Of course signals travel a fraction as fast through media such as wire or glass. And this was before the internet was a public thing. So we're talking dial-up 2,400 billion Australian dollars dial-up connections for all. Or through someone's intermediary network service of modem banks. Like SprintNet or some such. So even getting a page worth of record would take even longer. Plus the protocol overhead for managing all of that. And even the CPUs. Mass storage. Etc. were pretty slow compared to today. The MS-DOS computers ran 16-bit Intel chips. For fuck's sake. Just a student. But a relevant story. I had an assignment in college one day where we had to model something in AutoCAD. But there was one particular arc involved and absolutely no way to determine the diameter. The whole class was stumped. But the professor kept insisting that we had all the dimensions we needed and we just had to think outside the box. Class ended. And we were told to finish it for homework. I spent another 2 hours just staring at the screen and researching geometric theorems that I might not have learned. I gave up. Next class. The professor apologized and told us that, apparently, there was one dimension missing in the newest edition of the textbook. It was literally impossible.